Do you have any ideas to how to transition?
I do I always really liked the fact that the dark all the way around it, like, are we inside the door, right? I did
Mhm.
always really like that. In terms of another transition, um, I again, I also really liked that we mirrored the very first panel again, right? Like, almost like the story was just fully starting over. So maybe there's something we can do there that doesn't have the black all the way around it, but maybe it almost like if you flip this page, you might almost think that you were back to the first page of the book, right? You're almost like, "Oh, wait a second, am I on the first page of the comic?" And then you realize that you're not.
Okay. Yeah, let me I just want to get this idea down really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what if we just have a panel where it's just like we just see the door, um, right? But then to your point, the idea of let's start with so I'm gonna do these concurrently. Is your
Yeah.
your idea too kind of it works as well. So let's call this 6C or 6C. Okay. So the idea as you're talking, the idea occurred to me. I'm going, what if like the now we're looking from the perspective of the person coming in from the hall, opening up the door.
Mhm.
So now all we see is just because it transitions from the here you have this black panel, and I'm going, is it possible to do something where we now have, like what would be the natural? Is that Sam walking through the door, or is it somebody else? And then maybe like, uh, what if it's like a little bit of a fake out? So we have the person, um, like, let's say we could even have like it's dark in here or something is like
Mhm.
the, uh, and like a hand's kind of reaching through, and then we can have even like a little um, close up or something of the light being clicked on, and then it's now a different person. Oh, that's better, right? Like
Right.
something like that where they have, you know, they're obviously a very different person than the Sam, right?
Mhm.
Uh, even dressed like we're thinking the 80s for the Sam's character. Maybe we don't even know if it's still the 80s. Like, do you think it has to be the same era?
No, I don't think it does, quite frankly. Like, we don't know how long this door waits, right? It could have been this apartment could have been sitting vacant for years, right?
Exactly. So maybe that person could be like we could even have the person on the phone or something as they have like they're carrying something and they're on the phone,
Mhm.
uh cell phone this time, putting something down, and they're talking to somebody going, "Oh, hold on a moment. I'm going to call you back," and then have them like walk up to the door, in some capacity going, you know, huh, I
Mhm.
don't remember this being, I don't remember this being here before. And then having them like reach out to like try to open the door or something. Like just like a little bit of like a,
Mhm.
uh, actually somewhat similar to this. Thought about this.
So
Here we
now
go.
my next question to you, to take that even a step further, is, and this might not make sense, but do we need to be in the same place, or is the door somewhere else?
Right. Well, that's
Right? Like,
that's
are
it.
we in the same apartment, or is it the same thing is happening, but we physically feel like we're somewhere different and someone's just discovered this weird door, but is it the same apartment, or is it this door has just found its next victim?
Right. Well, we won't know because we're not actually seeing too much of the room to
Mhm.
be able to figure it out. So do you think there's a world where um let's make sure here we go. So do we want to see the details? Like is this person like maybe there is furniture here already?
Yeah, I'm
Like,
just wondering, and again, it was more of a question than I'm just thinking because, again, if we're playing it off that potentially passage of time and sort of the lore we've kind of come up with the door is that it does kind of could be anywhere, is that maybe once the door swallowed Sam, captured Sam, it reappears somewhere completely different and in a different time in a different place. Um,
so yeah, we could actually, if you want to like hint, so there's already a framed picture here, maybe.
mhm,
Uh, there's already like a little um, side table or something. So yeah, like that could be an interesting kind of like a really actually that adds like a real freakiness to it. They can be like, "What? Hold on a sec." Like they're on a cell phone and they're
yeah,
going, "Hold on a moment,"
yeah.
and
Where did this
then
come from?
like, "What? Where did
Well,
this?"
and not to cross over too much into our other thing that we're doing, our more live things, but where we have our broken clock story. And if you haven't checked that out, you should. Where in that story, the boy brings home the broken clock and the door just appears and nobody can see it but
Mhm.
them. So this almost has a similar feel to it where this person's been living there going around and all of a sudden they're like, wait a second, what is that? And there's not a door in that room. So,
Yeah. So if we were to let's just go with the 6C. So somebody's coming in, we could in this scenario where maybe they're not even uh let me find it where it is. Okay. So to the point of like, they're fully moved in,
yeah.
it is a similar, there it could be a similar scenario, but maybe in this scenario, because it's um, completely the first panel is completely, like, bleeding to the
Hmm.
sides. Maybe the second panel could be, like, where there's somebody with, like, a bag of stuff, and they see the door, and, again, it doesn't have to be, like, they don't have to be on the phone per se, but maybe it's closing in, and they can be like, what is that?"
Yeah.
Right? And it closes in to them, uh, moving towards the door, and then, some scenario where we see them just like putting their hand on the doorknob or something, right? So,
Yeah.
like, we could do something like that too, where it kind of closes in a little bit from the, like, similar kind of to the 6A, but a little
Hmm.
different. Um, what are your thoughts?
Um, I am thinking. I'm not sure. I like them both. They kind of do different things, right?
Mhm.
Um, 6B feels a little bit more like the starting of the next story, and 6C feels more like the ending of this story, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Um, and they both work for very different reasons, right? Like 6B feels very much like a continuation, like this is not going to stop till somebody figures out what's causing it kind of thing, where 6C feels like, it's already written, this person's going to be swallowed whole next. And both of those work.
Yeah, I think that 6B, um, I for me, there's a little bit more of a creepiness factor. It's a little bit of a, also, I like that it's a little bit of a, switch up. Like,
Yeah.
you're thinking it's gonna be one thing and it's a different thing. And I like that element of it, like, where okay, so from the transition from 5B where it's, that last panel being completely black
Hmm.
to 6, because don't forget you're turning the page. So now you're going to this first panel where all you see is this door and somebody's hand kind of coming from it. So is that Sam? Right? We don't know. But
Yeah.
then the lights turned on in panel 2. It's obviously not Sam. Person's on a cell phone. Like they're hopefully people will get that we don't remember seeing anything modern in this first 5 pages, but in
Hmm.
this sixth page, they're carrying a cell phone. Maybe there's like an Apple Watch on their wrist or something.
Yeah.
And panel 4, the room is already fully furnished. but all of a sudden there's a door there that didn't exist before, right?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like you're right. It's the beginning of a new story, but at the same time, it's also kind of like, what is this door? Like, is this door going to be part of a bigger story?
I think that 6B is more unexpected, right?
Mhm.
I feel like 6A and 6C feel like what you expect in this kind of thing where it's like it's starting again, it's eating the next person. But when we look at B and you're like, not only is it starting again, but it's now, wow, it's not in the same time period. It's not in the same place. Like this thing's got powers beyond just this door in this apartment. It now just tells you this is a whole universe. Like this is a whole thing versus just this one door.
Right. And I think I was thinking this because of our other story with the clock, which takes place in the 30s,
Uh-huh.
and you had written story that expanded beyond like what I had drawn, which was like, you
Uh-huh.
know, the clock all of a sudden disappeared from the kid's house and reappeared again back, right? And so
Yeah.
like there's this whole thing where like, oh, so the not only is there a door out there that um like exists where it shouldn't, now there's a clock that for some reason uh can move in
Activates the
from one
door. It's
place.
like it's
Yeah, and
connected.
so that made me go, what if the door doesn't even can move through time and space as well? Like it doesn't have to be that the door is in the same location. It's just a new
100%.
tenant sitting in. It could be this door is in a completely different space and just appears out of nowhere. So like there's some kind of interesting, like we have to figure out what the rules of this are. I'm getting a sense that as the
Yeah.
story that we tell unravels, and if we continue to do more of these types of stories, we'll kind of figure it out. But for now,
Yeah.
it's like there's something there. I don't know what it is, but I'm liking
I 100% agree, and it's feeling bigger than a six-page comic, right? Which is
it.
what is
Yeah.
really interesting because we could even we've talked about the broken clock and how the child bringing that home brought the door to their house, etcetera. We could even hide, like, in 1C, that clock is just sitting somewhere on a table. And maybe in
Mhm.
6B, that's what brought it out. This person's got their bag and their whatever, and they have this, clock in their hand that somebody gave them, and they're bringing it into their house for the first time.
Oh,
And that's why that door appeared, right? And then we don't ever say it, we don't mention it. It's just there. And it's one of those things that once you've read enough of this, looked at enough of this, seen enough things, you're like, hold on a second, is that clock? And then you start realizing maybe that that's this connecting universe thing.
that's great. I love that. Like, I wasn't even thinking that was a clock. I was just thinking it was like a plant. And you're like, it did kind of speak of a clock already. So that worked out. See, this is what's so great about the process is like I
Yeah.
created something that was not intentionally anything. I was just, it was just a very benign thing. And Sarah's like, let's make this connection to this. I'm like, ooh, that works so much better.
Well, and
That's
it's this little thing, but if you're looking and you're like, "Oh my god, wait a second. I remember that broken clock story," and it's like, "Is that person carrying that clock?"
yeah.
So,
That's
yeah.
right. Okay. Well, I see that then it kind of tells me 6B for
Yeah,
now
I
seems to
agree.
be the way to do this because to your point, 6A and 6C are a little bit they do I don't know if they're completely expected, but for the most part
They
in
close the loop on the door, right? They very
yeah.
much feel like, it's that, like, it's gonna start again, it's creepy, but it definitely feels like the end of the story where I feel like 6B feels like the story's just starting, right? And now you're left
Right.
being like, "Okay, I thought I knew what was going on, I get it, the door ate him," then you're like, "Wait a second, what?" Which is what
Yeah,
we want people to do.
there's more levels at play with 6B.
I
6A and
agree.
6C
They're
do if
clean, right? They're a clean ending to a creepy story, whereas 6B, it leaves you being like, "Well, where's 6C? Like, where's the next page? Like, I need to know what's gonna happen next," which is more what you want in that horror because you all the questions haven't been answered, right?
yeah. It leaves it at a much greater cliffhanger.